The shot cracked through the canyon like the tearing of silk, sharp and final, and every man on the ridge froze. Radios went silent. Dust lifted from the rocks where the round struck, a perfect, impossible hit at nearly 1,000 meters. The SEAL Master Chief lowered his binoculars slowly, his breath caught somewhere between disbelief and dread. "Who fired that shot?" he demanded. No one answered. Then he saw the shooter step out from the shadow of the boulder, and his heart stuttered, because it was her. 2 hours earlier, the team had been pinned down by a ghost. The target, a warlord who had slipped through 3 task forces and vanished into the mountains, was moving again, and this time he had brought an army of lookouts in improvised positions. The plan had been clean on paper: insert before dawn, establish overwatch, wait for confirmation, extract. But mountains don't care about plans. Wind curled unpredictably. The terrain folded into itself. And somewhere below them, the ghost had learned. The Master Chief, Callahan, had been doing this longer than most men on the team had been alive. He trusted his instincts, trusted the training, trusted the men. What he didn't trust, what he had learned to be cautious with, was hope. Hope made you rush. Hope made you believe the mountain would bend for you. Still, as he scanned the valley through glass, he felt the pressure of the moment tightening like a fist. They were exposed. Every second increased the chance of discovery. And then the crack came, precise and terrifying in its confidence. Before the shot, she had been quiet. She always was. Lieutenant Mara Hale had arrived 6 months earlier with a file so thick it made even the veterans curious. A marksman's record that bordered on myth. Deployments that read like rumors. Commendations written in careful, restrained language that somehow made them heavier. She was the first woman assigned to this particular unit, and while no one said it out loud, everyone noticed the extra weight she carried just by being there. She never complained. She never tried to be louder than the others. She just did the work. That morning, when the wind shifted unexpectedly and the spotter whispered that the angle was wrong, Callahan had made the call to hold. Hale had looked at him then, eyes steady, calculating. "I can take it," she said, her voice barely louder than the wind. Callahan shook his head. Not today. He didn't doubt her skill. He doubted the cost of being wrong. Now, as the echo of the shot died and the valley held its breath, Callahan felt that cost in reverse. The round had struck exactly where it needed to. The ghost's convoy skidded to a halt. Confusion rippled through the enemy lines. The radio crackled alive with frantic voices. Callahan's hand tightened on the binoculars as he tracked the source of the shot. When he saw Hale standing there, rifle still braced, face calm as a held note, something inside him broke open. She moved with economy, reloading without drama, eyes already back on the scope. "Target down," she said over comms, as if reporting the weather. The team snapped back into motion, training overriding shock. Callahan swallowed hard. "Confirmed," he said. "All elements, execute." The extraction was messy. The enemy reacted faster than expected. Mortars walked closer. A blast threw one of the younger operators, Diaz, hard against the rocks, leaving him stunned and bleeding. Hale was already moving, slinging her rifle and dropping beside him, hands sure and gentle even as rounds snapped overhead. She spoke to Diaz the way a steady voice speaks to panic, firm, calm, unafraid. Callahan watched it all through broken sightlines, issuing orders, trusting her in ways he hadn't realized he was still learning. They made it out by inches. When the bird finally lifted, the mountains receding beneath them, the team sat in exhausted silence, the kind that comes after you've been too close to the edge. Diaz was stable. The target was confirmed. Mission accomplished. And yet, something hung in the air, unspoken. Back at base, the debrief room felt smaller than usual. The screens replayed grainy footage. Numbers scrolled. Words like trajectory, and windage, and probability filled the space. Callahan listened, but his mind kept returning to that moment on the ridge, to the way the world had narrowed to a single decision. When the room cleared, he asked Hale to stay behind. She stood at attention, face unreadable. Callahan studied her for a long second, then exhaled. "You disobeyed a direct order," he said. "Yes, Master Chief," she replied. "Why?" "Because the window was closing," she said. "Because the wind was about to die for 3 seconds, and then it would turn against us. Because Diaz was already exposed, and if we waited, we would have lost the chance, and maybe him." Callahan nodded slowly. "And because you knew you could make the shot." She met his eyes. Yes. There was no arrogance in it. Just truth. Callahan leaned back, the weight of command pressing on him in a way it hadn't for years. He thought of the nights he had spent making calls that followed him home. He thought of the men he had buried. He thought of how easy it would be to hide behind procedure, to pretend that rules alone kept people alive. "You saved lives today," he said quietly. "You also put us all at risk." "Yes, Master Chief." He studied her again, really looked this time, not at the record, not at the symbol of change she represented, but at the officer standing in front of him. "I froze," he admitted, "when I realized it was you. Not because I didn't trust you. Because I realized I should have trusted you sooner." Something flickered across her face then, something like relief. "Trust is built," she said. "I know that." In the weeks that followed, the story of the shot traveled, as stories always do. It grew in the telling, but the core remained. A moment when skill met courage, when a decision made under impossible pressure changed everything. Hale didn't seek the attention. She returned to training, to early mornings and late nights, to the quiet grind of excellence. The team watched her differently now, not with skepticism, but with respect earned the only way it ever is. Callahan changed too. He found himself listening more closely, weighing voices he might once have dismissed. Leadership, he realized, wasn't about knowing everything. It was about knowing who to trust when it mattered most. On their next deployment, the mountains were just as unforgiving, the enemy just as cunning. But the team moved with a new cohesion, a deeper confidence. When the wind shifted and the moment came, Callahan didn't hesitate. He didn't need to ask who fired the shot. He already knew. And long after the echoes faded, after the reports were filed and the medals tucked away, the lesson remained, quiet and enduring. Courage doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits patiently, doing the work, ready for the moment when everything depends on a steady hand and a willing heart. When that moment comes, the only thing that matters is having the strength to see it, and the wisdom to trust it.